Yeah, my name's Dan. I'll talk to you about some things that I think are useful that you can do when you're starting a business or when you're thinking of starting a business to help manage your business better from a legal point of view, from a compliance point of view, and from a regulatory point of view, but also just from a good practice point of view, because a good business that's well run is genuinely a good business. But I'll just take you back a bit because I'm not doing any slides because I used to be a management consultant for 10 years. I spent 10 years of my life building slides and writing slides and then presenting slides, and I'm really, really bored of slides. So I don't really like doing them anymore, so I kind of prefer just to talk now. Apologies if it's just kind of, you see my face there and my face here as well. That's a bit off-putting. Maybe we can go control black.
Command B. It's okay, it's fine.
Okay.
We like seeing your face.
You just see my face anyway. I started straight out of university as a management consultant, worked for a couple of big American companies, did some coding, did some big projects, usually around IT, which is kind of how I get interested in technology. All sorts of industries, from oil and gas to utilities to government to health to postal, pretty much anything you name it, I kind of did a project related to it, but tended to be around technology. But all the time doing that, I wanted to work for myself. I wanted to work in startup life. I knew some people that had kind of gone into that world, and I wanted to kind of move from talking about business to actually doing business, and that was always, I guess, a dream of mine. I guess with people in this room who have started businesses or who think of starting businesses, that's kind of a similar journey to what you guys may have gone on as well. It's a kind of different story if you are in a corporate environment and then you jump out of that, which is kind of difficult because you've got the handcuffs on you because you're working for a big name and you're getting paid quite well, and you then need to take a jump to not doing that and to earning no money and to doing something where you've got no credibility, with no name, and then trying to sell off the back of it. And that whole thing has been an incredible learning experience for me. So I took the plunge about 3 years ago now. I set up a company with 3 ex-colleagues of mine called Cognition. It's based in Dublin. It's an Internet of Things company. Does anyone know what Internet of Things here is? Okay. We have little sensors that go on the walls of buildings and factories. They measure different parameters such as energy, water, gas, humidity, and we're able to get a good picture of that building or factory to reduce the energy costs or the maintenance costs. That business is going. My business partner is running that. And then about a year ago, I got an opportunity to work with an old friend of mine, who I've known for about 20 years, who asked me to come and launch Sparqa Legal and help with the running of that. So Sparqa Legal is a new-ish product taken to the market. And I'll talk about some of the problem statements related to this area in a second. I think, Michael, you did quite a good description of that in general. But obviously in the kind of startup world, everyone knows it's all about the problem and loving the problem. And I think you had a good description of what that problem is and a bit of love for it, which I've very much got as well. But the parent company called, a sister company I should say, a company called From Counsel, set up by a number of barristers, which is providing a legal intelligence service for lawyers. But they have the general feeling that that's all good and well for good law firms. They've got a lot of good law themselves anyway. The actual bigger need is for those people that don't have great access to lawyers. And either that's because law is seen as like a few things, right? It's seen as expensive, one, especially for small businesses or for individuals. It's seen as particularly complex. Sorry, Michael, I know you're going to become a lawyer soon, so maybe you'll disagree with something. But to a lot of small businesses, it's quite scary as well. So there's 5.7 million businesses in the UK. A lot of them are freelancers, a lot of them are startups. You only actually got a very, very small percent that the big businesses out there that are lucky enough to be able to hire good law firms, or lucky enough to have people that are skilled in commercial or HR and other things like that. So it's actually, the majority is kind of normal people that don't have those experience, and that whole angle around access for justice means that you have a whole variety of businesses that just don't have really good, solid information, and they end up going around that and circumventing the system. So just a little quick show of hands here. So how many hands up, or can you just show your hands if you've started a business already? Okay, most people, yeah. And those people who are about to start a business? I think you mentioned you're about to. You have one already as well.
I have, yes.
Okay, so out of the people in here, who has had anything to do with law that they wanted to know about the business, whether it be creating a contract or doing a document or knowing what to do in a certain situation? Okay, and who here used a lawyer to deal with that problem?
Well, paid lawyer or
Paid lawyer.
not paid.
Okay, so not a paid lawyer. So it was maybe a friend. Okay, so my wife's a lawyer. My sister's a lawyer. When I have my business, I use theirs. I'm in an incredibly lucky situation. I live in London. It's surrounded by lawyers. Right? But we actually have a bit of a mixed population in the UK. A lot of people don't live near London, or they come from different backgrounds. They don't know lawyers, so they can't ask for that. So the Solicitors Regulation Authority and the Legal Services Board did a report last year. They interviewed 10,000, 20,000 people who run small businesses. They said out of that report that when small businesses have a legal problem, only 1 in 10 see a lawyer. And that's when they've got a problem, not if they just want to do something that's quite easy. 10% of people ask friends or family, or their mates down at pub, because everyone's like a pub lawyer. You should be doing this, you should be doing that. 50% of people try and do it themselves. So they go and they Google something, or they go and find out things, or they steal maybe a document from someone else's website because they've already got one. And 20% of people ignore the issue completely and hope it goes away. Okay, so that's the statistics behind it all. So that's the issue. That's the problem we're faced with. So it's not just about lawyers are expensive. Is there a better way to deal with lawyers? It's actually there's a big chunk of society who are running small businesses and who are trying to get by, whether they be pop-up shops or startups or creatives or professional services, that genuinely don't have that access to the type of law they should actually have access to, and a technology solution would give them that type of access. There are various risks with not doing something, and from my point of view, and this is why I think it's very important to love the problem when you're in a startup or setting up a startup, is it's all good and well ignoring something, but if you do get bitten at the end of it, that could be a serious issue. So I'm going to show you Sparqa in a second, but before I do that, I want to talk about a couple of areas where I feel, and I'm not a lawyer by the way, and I've never studied law, so I'm not going to give you any legal advice, but I can give you a little bit of personal advice or some thoughts, having run a business, but also knowing Sparqa and how it works. And I'll talk about two things. I'll talk about websites, and I'll talk about shareholders as well. And then I'm going to click on the site before I do that. But before I do that, I'll just roll back one little bit to what Michael's was saying before. So I joined in October last year. We decided to launch the product around that time. Managed to get some friends and family using it, so we could get a lot of feedback, and then we launched on AppSumo. Since October, we've had about 7,000 businesses use the products. So we've got a really good knowledge of what people are using the product for, how they want to use it. We've done surveys, we've got newsletters, and we're in now a very good position to move forward with the business to the next stage of the business. That aside, my experience of going through something like a big campaign online has been very, very good.
Yeah,
and
I can
it's
imagine.
for anyone that hasn't done those kind of campaigns or is thinking of different ways to get new customers. If there are certain ways you can just build up customers and almost forget about needing to hit your different types of targets like margins or other things very early on, I would encourage you just to get customers in, because getting the feedback and getting insight from your customers and getting your customers to tell you, actually, what you guys have built, you need to be doing this kind of thing because that's what we really need, or you need to be thinking of that because that's what we really need. And that's been an incredible lesson for us. Okay, so I think what I'll do is I'll talk on those couple of points then before. So has anyone here got a website for their business? Okay. So I won't ask Michael because he's using Sparqa Legal. So obviously I've done this. So the other three, have you got documents for your website, legal documents for your website?
Mine's in the US.
Yours in the US, but it's almost exactly the same applies in the US. You haven't either. Do you collect any information on the users that come to your website?
Just where they're coming from.
Okay, so you do Google Analytics.
Yeah.
So you are collecting cookies. Okay. So you do, by law, you need a cookies policy. And you need also to prompt people about using it as well. And you need to be proactive in doing that as well. So when you go on certain websites, you get a little pop-up box, which is cookies and privacy notice. You need to start to think about these kind of things.
Okay.
And I think this is where...
Is that only if you're collecting data on
If
it?
you're collecting cookies, yeah.
Okay.
Or if you're going to do something with their data, which is why the privacy policy comes in. So with GDPR that has come out, has been running for a couple of years now, you guys aren't in the same situation as Facebook, but as you guys know, they've been fined 5 billion. So you could be fined a certain amount of your amount. But I think it's from a more practical reason, it's not about being fined, it's about looking like a professional business. So if you're thinking about partnering with people, or if you want to look right in front of clients, my big steer is make sure the basics are right. And the basics, you all know what the basics look like in terms of making sure your website looks nice, but making sure the legal basics look right as well, because then you look like a better run company. Now, looking like a better run company, I believe, for the basics, you can do yourself. So Sparqa Legal works in two ways. Number one, it's a subscription-based service. So for £25 a month, people are able to use any of the documents on the site. And very soon we're launching a freemium service where people can access all the questions and answers, which I'm going to give everyone access to at the end of the session. Actually, I'll get your details after this, Michael, because we'll get it around to people. I think it's being filmed, we don't want everyone to have this. It's exclusive offer.
Accountability.
We'll give you guys an offer so we can get you guys using the solution as well. I think there's some interesting things on there. So we've got about 400 auto-generated documents and 10,000 legal answers. Everything from how do I incorporate a company? What do I need to think about in my articles of association? What do I need to think about if I'm going to take on an employee? How do I give them an employment contract? What do I do if I need to have a board meeting, and how does that work? What do I do around VAT? Terms and conditions, sales.
NDAs.
NDAs, absolutely, yes. So I think NDAs are probably one of the most popular things that ever gets asked for from our business. I'll just talk one thing actually around NDAs. So just my experience with NDAs.
Could you explain what an NDA is, just in
yes,
case anyone doesn't know?
non-disclosure agreement, which is to protect your confidentiality of your business and your IP, but also the person that you're talking with. And that person that you're talking with could be a freelancer that's working with you, like a creative, that might be using some of your materials or knowing a lot about your company. It could be someone that you're having a partnership conversation with. It could be a new employee, or it could be someone that you're trying to raise finance from. Now, the raising finance part of the NDA is a really interesting one, because lots of small businesses think, I'm not going to tell everyone about my business, I'm going to get them to sign an NDA, because otherwise they're going to steal my great idea. I'm going to tell you now, and this is just for experience, this is not a law thing, no investor is going to sign an NDA. It locks them out of the market, they just won't do it. If you have an investor meeting and you're looking to raise X £1,000 and you want to speak to an angel investor, even if they're from a syndicate or even if it's just an experienced investor, and you say to them, will you sign an NDA? I guarantee you 95% of them will say no. And they'll say no because it locks them out of being able to have conversations with lots of different people. So that's just from my business experience. That's kind of what I've seen from NDA. But I think from other conversations, NDAs are very, very important, and they're incredibly easy to do. And I can show you how to do one in a second. So from a case of using a lawyer to do an NDA, maybe £1,000, maybe £2,000, depending on the lawyer. Sparqa Legal, you can do it in genuinely like 5 minutes, and you've got the NDA there. And that's, I think, how this, from a problem perspective, actually that fits that, because what we have got is a digital legal service where small businesses can DIY their own stuff. Much like people do now with Xero and Sage and QuickBooks for their accountancy, their basic stuff, much like you do with Trello for your kind of comms and some small project management, and HubSpot for your sales. No one's using Excel anymore for like their sales stuff. People are now using HubSpot. There are certain apps that manage businesses better, and Sparqa Legal is one of those ones for law. So these are actually the top 10 things that I've got a huge amount of Google Analytics data, so I know what people are looking for. People are looking for stuff on their websites. People are looking at non-disclosure agreements. People are looking for employment contracts and terms and conditions of doing business. Staff handbook's a big one, because as soon as people just think, I need a staff handbook. A lot of people don't need a staff handbook, but it's nice and comforting to think, I've got now 5 staff on, maybe I should have some policies around it. Oh, I had to, this is another thing where when people think I need stuff, I had to fill out a form to do a government contract, and they asked me about my diversity and my equalities policy, and we don't have a policy. So I need to create a policy. So it's things like that I think are often trigger points for people, and that's often with law, right? Law is not like accounting. You don't need to do law every week, but you do need to do it when it's a need, and when someone says something to you, or when someone tries to sue you, or when someone doesn't pay you, or these kind of things that will make you think, I need to do something around that. Late payments is a big one with ours. Has anyone here not been paid by someone? It's incredibly frustrating, and you don't really know what to do with it. There is a set process of what you should do, right? And there are set legal letters that you can send, and there are set ways that you can take someone down a small claims court. That's all in here. So if you follow the process, you don't need to get an accountant or a lawyer to help you out in that kind of way. But yeah, some of the other kind of most popular ones: shareholders agreement, consultancy, and email. So, sorry, I was going to talk about shareholders agreement. This is the problem with not having a slide deck. I go around in circles about what I'm talking about. So, shareholders agreement, unlike cookies and the privacy policy, shareholders agreement is not compulsory. You don't need to have a shareholders agreement. However, and lots of people don't, right? So if you're starting with your friend, or your brother, or your dad, or whatever it might be, you think, well, my sister, I don't need a shareholders agreement with my sister, because she knows me, I know her, like, it's all going to be cool. But there's so many different permutations around what could potentially happen. So I'm just going to read out like a couple of things that just worth thinking about if you are starting a business, or there are other shareholders involved. So if you don't have one, do one, because if anything, it just covers you. One of you might be hit by a bus, or one of you might do something that will really piss the other person off, that you probably need something in writing to protect yourself against, or protect that other person against, or protect your spouse against in a certain situation. So it's not mandatory, but it's strongly recommended. So the benefits are that it provides protections against shareholders versus other people you might brought onto the board in a certain situation. So some people might end up in a situation where they're vetoed out, even though they became a major shareholder at the beginning. If you want to protect yourself against that, you can put that in the shareholders agreement. You can look at things such as imposing obligations on shareholders who on how they sell their shares. Okay, so or transfer their shares. So if you put in the shareholders agreement that you want to be able to transfer your shares to your wife to claim entrepreneur's relief, or your children, or whatever it might be, which a lot of people in startups try and do, so they can kind of maximise if they want to do a product that's going to be a global product. You might genuinely want to do that. We've got some of the best entrepreneur's relief offers in the UK compared to anywhere else in the world. So there's a number of ways to do that, but if you've done something that's going to annoy the other shareholders and they didn't agree that you could transfer those shares and it wasn't written down, that may cause some problems. and then also agreeing what would happen if you transfer those shares. So other things then that are usually covered in the shareholders agreement is how you do a business plan when it actually happens, how you do board meetings when it happens, and who's going to run them, whether there's any kind of committees that need to happen on the side. If you ever issue more shares in the future, what then happens? So an investor may come in and say, I want to buy some shares off you guys. If you haven't protected yourself in a certain way, you don't have the right to say no in that situation if you're not protected yourself, or to say, actually, my grand's just left me some money, I would rather put in the money than let a third person come into this relationship. And with all of those things, there's a set number of things that you can protect yourself against by having a shareholders agreement. So I'm not going to labour the point, but my advice is that there's a number of things on here that help you run your company better, because genuinely, like a better run company is a better company. And give it a go and see how you like it, and yeah, get in touch if you need anything else. Thank you.